Welcome pre-calculus students to the homework help video, page 652, numbers 17 and 19 through 24. Get your books out. Please open to this page, page 652. Get your homework out, and let's see if we cannot answer some of your questions. Okay, number 17 says, if I have vector u and vector v meeting with the angle that forms between them of 90 degrees. So here's vector u, a little longer than vector v. So here's vector u, here's vector v, and 90 degrees between them. Now they want us to find the resultant, or in other words, this line right here that comes out. And so what we've been taught to do, of course, is to go ahead and draw a parallelogram like this, and then come down. And so what we're really doing here, if we're going to find this length right here, don't forget this u has a length of 45 and v has a length of 30. Okay, so we draw our parallelogram, and now we realize that if this angle here is 90, remember parallelograms, consecutive angles, side-by-side angles are always supplementary. So if this angle is 90 right here, then this angle right over here has to be 90 also. All right. And if this is 45 over here, then this has to be 45. So using law of cosines, let me get out my red pen here very quickly, and we can find, if I can get this to work, we can find, let me trace over this triangle. There we go. We can find this missing side right here, I'll call it x. If this is 30 and this is 90, and this is 45, I can find x by using the law of cosines. So x squared equals 30 squared plus 45 squared minus 2 times 30 times 45 times the cosine of 90. Now I know a perfect math teacher would have already had this done. I do not, so very quickly I'm typing into my calculator 30 squared plus 45 squared minus 2 times 30 times 45 times cosine of 90 degrees. And I'm getting this right here, x squared equals 2,925. And now we're going to take the square root of both sides. And if we do that correctly, we will get out, let's see here, 54.1. So x equals 54.1 degrees. Or excuse me, the length of x is 54.1. So there we found the resultant. And the resultant is 54.1. Now they've asked us to find the angle between the resultant and vector u. So this angle right here, okay? Now we already knew the whole angle is 90 right here, okay? So let's take a second and think about this, okay? Come on, let's think this through very quickly. It's not too hard to do, okay? If I'm trying to find this angle right here, that would be the exact same angle as this angle right here. How do I know that? Because whenever two parallel lines are cut by a transversal, here's a parallel line, here's a parallel line, cut by a transversal, alternate interior angles are congruent, okay? So this angle here is congruent to this angle here. So if I find this angle here, that's the exact same angle as this angle over here. So here we go. I can find this angle very quickly right here by using, oh, let's see, this resultant right here is 54.1. So I can use law of sines. I can simply say that 54.1 over the sine of 90, remember those two go together, equals 30, that's this length right here, and we'll call this angle y, over the sine of y. Now if we cross multiply and divide, we will end up with the sine of y equals 30 sine 90 over 54.1. And then, of course, let's see what we get. We would have 30 sine of 90 divided by 54.1. We're going to get the sine of y equals 0.5 5, 4, 5. And now let's find that angle. Second sign of that decimal, 0.5545, and we will get 33.67 or 34 degrees. So this angle right here is 34 degrees. So there's our other answer, 34 degrees. Not bad at all. Every single one of these problems are done the exact same way. Number 19, we have vector 10 or vector u and vector v. They form a 67-degree angle, so I'm going to draw my vectors, make it a little straighter than that, and like that. There we go. This one has a length of 10, this one has a length of 12, and this angle right here is 67 degrees. All right, now let's go ahead and draw our parallelogram. So to finalize our drawing, there's our parallelogram, and when you're finding the resultant of this vector right here and this vector right here, when you're finding the resultant, that means the length of this line right here. So that's the line we're trying to find. So I guess we'll call that x real quick. Now for this whole angle here is 67. Remember, in a parallelogram, consecutive angles are supplementary. So this angle right over here has to be 113 degrees, because 113 plus 67 is 180. If this side right here is a length of 10, then I'm going to put a 10 right here. And now look at this triangle. I'm going to highlight in black this triangle right here. I'm now going to solve for x, this length right here, by using the law of cosines. The law of cosines. So here we go. X squared equals 10 squared plus 12 squared minus 2 times 10 times 12 times cosine of 113. So here we go. Using a calculator, let's see, 10 squared plus 12 squared minus 2 times 10 times 12 times cosine of 113 is going to give me this right here. X squared equals 337.77. All right, and now let's take the square root of that number, and we will get 18.37 or 18.4. So x equals 18.4. So the resultant, which is the length of x, the resultant when you add vector u plus vector v, we get this right here, which is 18.4. So this length is 18.4. Now, remember, next they want us to find this angle right here. It forms with vector u, this little angle right here. And remember, this little angle right here is always going to be the exact same angle as this right here. They're always going to be congruent. So really, if I can find this angle right here, we'll call it angle y. If I can find this angle here, that's the exact same angle that's over here, which is the angle we're looking for, because it's the angle between the resultant and vector u. And the directions say, find the measure of the angle that's formed between the resultant, which is this line right here, the resultant, and vector u, which is this line right here. So we're going to use law of sines. I know that 18.4 goes over sine of 113, and then 12 is across from angle y, so 12 over sine of y. Okay, now if I cross multiply and divide, I will end up with the sine of y equals 12 sine 113 all over 18.4. And now going across here, I will end up with, let's see, 12 sine 113 divided by 18.4, and we will get this right here, sine of y equals 0.60039, etc. And if we take second sine or inverse sine of that number, we're going to get, let's see here, second sine, we're going to get 36.8 degrees, which is 37 degrees. So y equals 37 degrees. So circle that, and that's your answer right here, which is also this angle right here, 37 degrees. All right, let's go ahead and try number 20. All right, here we go. We have vector u and vector v forming a 75-degree angle. So here's u, here's v. This is vector u, This is vector v. This has a length of 25, and this has a length of 30. Let's go ahead and this is a measurement here of 75 degrees. Let's go ahead and draw the rest of our parallelogram going across, coming up. Okay. And now we're going to add u plus v. We're going to add those two vectors. When you add those two vectors, you're finding the length of this line right here. Please don't forget that, okay? So really, if this is 75 degrees here, then I know this over here has to be 105, because this angle here and this angle here will always add up to 180 in a parallelogram, always, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and draw this triangle right here off to the side. The triangle looks something like this. We have 105 degrees here. This is a length of 30. And of course, if this is a 25 here, then I know this is a 25 right here. So this has to be a 25 here. And now I can find this resultant very quickly using the law of cosines. So x squared equals 30 squared plus 25 squared minus 2 times 30 times 25 times cosine of 105. So there we go. Let me type this in real quick. 30 squared plus 25 squared minus 2 times 30 times 25. And what you're going to get is x squared equals 1913.228568. Take the square root of both sides and you will get 43.7. I'm going to go ahead and just call it 44 and get rid of that decimal. Even though the directions told us not to, I'm not really too worried about that. So there's the length of x, 44. So now you know the resultant. When you add those two vectors together, you get 44. Now they've asked us to find this angle right here. This is the angle right here. I'm going to change colors. This angle right here is formed by the resultant and vector u, and they want us to find that angle. We're going to call it y. Well, that angle there is always going to be the same as this angle here, always. So really, if I find this angle here, that's the exact same angle as this angle over here. So I'm going to use law of sines. I'm going to say 44 over the sine of 105 equals 30 over the sine of y. Now if we cross multiply and divide, we're left with sine of y equals 30 sine 105 divided by 44. Now I'm going to very quickly grab my calculator. 30 sine 105 divided by 44, and I'm getting this right here. I'm getting sine of y equals 0.6585857,907. And if I take second sine or inverse sine of that decimal, I will get that y equals 41.19, or in other words 41.2 degrees. All right. Or we can just round it to 42 degrees, either way. So 42 degrees. So this angle right here is 42 degrees. So did we find the resultant? Yes, this length right here. Did we find this angle right here? Well, yeah, it's right here, 42 degrees. And if this is 42 right here, then that's also going to be this angle over here, 42 degrees. All right, let's take a look at number 21. Okay, we have vector u and v. They form a degree. They form an angle of 117 degrees. So it'll look a little bit like this. Here's u. And here's v. We'll call this u. We'll call this v, and we're going to put 117 degrees here. All right. And now let's go ahead. Oh, this is a length of 20, and this is a length of 20. Now we're going to go ahead and draw our parallelogram. So we come over like this, and then down like this. And they want us to find the resultant of u and v. Now the resultant, or the sum of u and v, is this diagonal right here. Okay, right there. So if this is 117 degrees here, then we know this over here has to be 63 degrees, because 117 and 63 have to add up to 180. Okay, and I know if this is 20 right here, then this side over here has to be 20 also. Okay, so with that in mind, I want to very quickly find this line right here, and I'm going to do that by quickly tracing over that triangle like I just did. Now we're going to pull it over here, and we know this has a length of 20, this has a length of 20, this has a measurement of 63 degrees, and this is what I'm looking for. We'll call it x. So law of cosines, x squared equals 20 squared plus 20 squared minus 2 times 20 times 20 times cosine of 63 degrees. There we go. I'm going to grab my calculator real quick. 20 squared plus 20 squared minus 2 times 20 times 20 times cosine of 63 degrees. And that's going to give you x, sorry about that, x squared equals 20 point, or x squared equals, 436.8076, etc. So if you take the square root of both sides, you'll get 20.9. 20.9. So this length right here is 20.9, and that's the resultant. So you found the resultant. And now let's find the measure like they ask you to do. They ask you to find the measure between you, and here's you right here, the measure between you and the resultant. So this angle right here, which is always the same as this angle right here. So let's find this angle right here using the law of sines. So I can say 20.9 over the sine of 63 degrees equals 20 over the sine of y, as long as I call that y. So if we cross multiply and divide, I'm going to get sine of y equals 20 times the sine of 63 divided by 20.9. Let me grab my calculator very quickly. 20 sine of 63 divided by 20.9, and you're going to get this decimal right here. The sine of y equals 0.8526378222, and we're just going to stop right there. And if we take inverse sine of that decimal number, we're going to get 58.5 or 58.49, so 58 degrees. So this measurement right here is 58 degrees, which is the same as this right here, so this is 58 degrees. There we go. Moving on to number 22. We have a vector of length, magnitude of 30 and magnitude of 30, so it looks like this, and it looks like this, and we're going to call this u, and we're going to call this vector v. One has a length of 30, one has a length of 30, and this angle here is 123 degrees. Now let's go ahead and draw the rest of our parallelogram. And when they ask you to find the resultant or the sum of u and v, that's the exact same thing as finding the length of this diagonal right there. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to find the length of that diagonal, and of course I'm going to cut this triangle out like this so we can see it over here. There we go. And I know this has a length of 30, and I know if this is 30, then this side over here is 30, and then this angle right here, if this is 123, then this angle right here has to be 57 degrees, because these two angles always will add up to 180. Always. Okay? And now we can find the length of this diagonal right here using sine law of cosine. So x squared equals 30 squared plus 30 squared minus 2 times 30 times 30 times cosine of 57. And if you type all of that into your calculator, you will get x squared equals 819.649737. Take the square root of both sides, and you will end up with 28.6. So x equals 28.6. So this resultant right here is 28.6. Now, the next thing the directions ask us to do is they ask us to find Sorry about that little computer problem. So the resultant is 28.6. Now, the next thing they ask us to find is the measure of this angle right here, the angle that's formed with U, and the resultant, which is this angle right here, which is the same as this angle here. So we're going to find this angle here using the law of sines. So here we go. 28.6 over the sine of 57 equals 30 over the sine of y. Okay, let's cross multiply and divide. If you do that correctly, you will end up with the sine of y equals 30 sine 57 divided by 28.6, which would give us the sine of y equals, let me grab my calculator, 30 sine 57 divided by 28.6, and we will get 0.879724372, inverse sine of that decimal number, and we're going to get 62 degrees. So y equals 62 degrees. So there we go. This angle right here is 62 degrees. Okay. All right, number 23, we have U and V forming an angle of 27 degrees. That'll be kind of a small parallelogram. So here's U, and then here's V, and this would be 27 degrees, and this is vector U, and this is vector V. U has a length of 23, V has a length of 47. Let's go ahead and draw the rest of our parallelogram. So we come over like this and like this. We're asked to find the sum of U and V, which we've learned by now is the exact same thing as the length of this diagonal right there. So let's find the length of that diagonal, and that'll be the exact same thing as adding vectors U plus V. So let's pull this over right here, and let's quickly label what we have. Now remember, if this is 27 degrees, then this right here is going to be 153 degrees, because 153 plus 27 is 180. So this is 153 degrees. This has a length of 47, and if this is 23, then this will be 23, so this will be 23. And we're going to find this right here. So law of cosines, x squared equals 47 squared plus 23 squared minus 2 times 47 times 23 times cosine of 153. Let me grab my calculator quickly here. 47 squared plus 23 squared and I'm getting this right here, x squared equals 4,664.356,105, and if you take the square root of both sides, you will end up with 68.3. So x equals 68.3. So the sum of U and V when you add them together is 68.3. Now, next, in the directions, they want us to find the angle formed between U, right here, and the resultant, right, that little angle right there. And that's the exact same angle as this right here, so I can really find this angle here. It's the exact same thing, so I'm going to use law of sines. So I can say 68.3 over the sine of 153 equals 47 over the sine of y. Now let's cross multiply and divide. The sine of y equals 47 sine of 153 all over 68.3. Alright, now if you type that into your calculator, 47 sine 153 equals divided by 68.3, you're going to come up with this right here. Sine of y equals 0.312409271. And what we're going to do is we're now going to hit inverse sine of that decimal, and we're going to get 18 degrees rounded. So y equals 18 degrees. So if this angle here is 18 degrees, then this angle over here is also 18 degrees. One more problem and we're finally finished. Here we go. Okay, we have vectors U and V that form a 72 degree angle. So here's U coming down, here's V coming across. We'll put a U right here. I don't care if it's drawn to scale, that's not a big deal to me. And this is 72 degrees. And U has a length of 32 and V has a length of 74. Now we're going to go ahead and finish drawing the parallelogram like this. All right, there we go. And now we're asked to find the sum of vectors u and v. And when you find the sum of vectors u and v, that's the same thing as finding, as you've learned, the diagonal. Okay, so we're going to find the length of the diagonal, which is the exact same thing as finding the resultant, or the sum of u plus v. So there, I've cut the triangle out pretty good, not perfect, but good enough. So I'm going to pull this triangle over here. And now let's see, if this angle here is 72, then I know this angle right here must be 108, because 108 plus 72 is 180. And these two angles will always add up to 180. So 108 degrees. I know this length is 74, and I know this length of this side is 32. And I'm looking for this right here, x. So quickly using law of cosines, x squared equals 74 squared plus 32 squared minus 2 times 74 times 32 times cosine of 108. And so here we go. Let's see what we got. 74 squared plus 32 squared minus 2 times 74 times 32 times cosine of 108. And I'm getting this right here. I'm getting x squared equals 7,963.504485. If we take the square root of both sides, I'm coming up with 89.2. So x equals 89.2, which is the resultant, or the sum, of vectors u and v. So there we go. All right. Now, next in the directions, they've asked us to find the angle that's formed with vector u and the resultant. So that angle right there, this angle right here, which is the same angle as this right here. So really I can just find this angle over here, we'll call it y, and using law of sines, I would have 108 goes, that's incorrect, I apologize, 89.2 would go over the angle that goes with it, which is 108, so sine of 108 degrees equals 74, which is the side across from y, over the sine of y. Now let's cross multiply and divide. If you do that carefully, you'll come up with the sine of y equals 74 times the sine of 108 all over 89.2, which would then give you the sine of y equals, and I've got to type this into my calculator very quickly here, so 74 sine 108 divided by 89.2, and you should come up with this decimal right here, 0.78899930741. Now I'm going to take inverse sine of that decimal, and I'm going to get 52 degrees. So y equals 52 degrees. So if this angle here is 52 degrees, then this angle over here is also 52 degrees. I hope this homework video has been a help to you. Please call or email if you have any questions at all.